What's going on, guys? So today I'm going to show you how to create a simple team changer for your Roblox game. It's pretty easy to set up. You don't have to go into a server script and then change a bunch of values. All you have to do is pretty much just change the text of the button inside the GUI. And so I'll show you how to set it up and how to create it. And if you guys like it, please subscribe. So without further ado, the first thing we're going to want to do is create a screen GUI inside of starter GUI, and we're going to want to put a frame inside of it. Now I have this plugin that kind of helps me place frames on a player's screen, and so it'll adapt to whatever screen size the player has, so you're not going to get all these crazy different frames all over the screen. And so I'll put a link to that in the description, and as you can see, it just places it directly in the middle of the screen. So we're going to resize the frame just to whatever you think is suitable. And the next thing we're going to do is go in and kind of design it a little bit. I like to make all of my frames black and then change the background transparency to like 0.5 or 0.8. And then we're going to rename the starter GUI, and we're going to call it team change. And then the frame inside of it, we're going to want to call it main frame. And this is for scripting purposes so that we're able to find the different aspects of this GUI. And so the next thing we're going to do is put a scrolling frame inside the frame. And I'm not going to get it to the exact size of the frame. I want a little bit of offset so that I can center it inside that frame. And then I'm going to make the background transparency 1 so you can't see any of it. And then we're going to add a button. And so this is where we're going to start setting up the actual function of the GUI. And so as you can see, you can center it here, but the easiest way to do it is actually to put a UI grid layout inside of the scrolling frame, and it will automatically place how you want it. And so you can see that I can't resize the button with the boxes, but if you go into properties, you can change the cell size. And so what that is pretty much, I like to keep it around, like on the right value, keep it around like 35 to 50, and then on the left value I keep it anywhere from like 150 to 175 or 200. And typically it stretches across pretty nicely because we're going to center it along the top anyways, so that it just looks good and uniform. And if you have a lot of buttons, you can center them to the center, just however you want to do it, whatever is going to fit your game the best. And so now that we have that, this is the most important part of it all. So what we're going to want to do is change the text to Lucky Guy. It's pretty easy, like it goes with pretty much any game, and the text is already like automatically capitalized, so it's pretty easy just to change the text of it and it automatically look pretty good. Then we're going to change the button background to black and the transparency to 0.8 so it all looks uniform. And so as you can see, when we duplicate these buttons, it just automatically lays it out for us, and so it's super easy to set up. And so the next thing we're going to do is add a folder inside the button. And in this folder, we're going to have two values, int values, and we're going to name one group ID, and the other we're going to name it min rank. And so what this is for our script to come through and look at these values and see, okay, is the player in the group and does he have the proper rank to be on the team. So we're going to name this folder to group settings, and then we're going to change, the name of the button just to whatever you want, really. And then the text of the button needs to be the name of your team, exactly the name of your team. In this case, we're just going to call it Team 1, just for educational purposes. And so now we can duplicate a few more. I'm going to make 3 teams for the purpose of this video. We're going to change the text of it, and then we're going to do it one more time. Call it Team 3, and then change the text. Awesome. Okay. And then now that we got that, we can go ahead and add the open close button. So I'm going to set the visible to false here so we can't see it. And I'm going to add another frame. And so this frame is going to be where we put our open and close button. So, you know, the team change GUI is not open for the entire duration of the game. So we're going to set it to be on the side of the screen, and then we're going to set the background transparency to 1 as soon as I can find it. There it is. And so inside this frame, we're going to put a text button, and we're going to resize this text button just to be a little on the smaller side because we don't want it to be too obnoxiously big. And then, as you can see, if we center it inside the frame, it's kind of off from the side, and it just looks a lot better. So now we're going to style it. I'm going to make the background color black, and then we're going to change the transparency to 0.5 as well. Let me go ahead and change the text here. Always change the text color to white, and then the background transparency to 0.5. And so now you can see we got a button on the side of the screen here, and we're going to rename this just to team. There we go, teams, sorry. Awesome. And so now we can begin scripting. So what we're going to do is go ahead and insert a local script into this starter GUI. And so the first thing we're going to do is set up our parameters. The first parameter that we should go ahead and do is the player. So what we're going to do is just local player is equal to game.players.local player. And you can only call this in a local script. And so then the second parameter we're going to want to set up is our mainframe. So we're going to want the script to be able to know what it is. So we're going to say local mainframe is equal to script.parent.mainframe. And then we're going to want to set up our button as well. So we're going to say team button is equal to script.parent.frame.text button. And then we're going to set up some local functions. And so we're going to call this first function either open, we're going to call it open teams. And so we're going to call the first function open teams. All right. So we're going to want to go ahead and for this function, we want it to, when the button is pressed in the frame, that the GUI is set to visible, and then we want the text of the button to be set to close. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to check if the mainframe is already set to false, and then if it is, we're going to set it to visible, and then we're going to change the button text to close. And make sure you have a double equal sign there because that'll mess you up. So we're going to say team button.text is equal to close, and then we're going to say else if, and we're going to have it check to see if the mainframe visibility is set to true. And if it is set to true, then we want to set it to false, and then have the text button display the text teams instead of close. And so this way we don't have to have like 30 different scripts inside this GUI to script one button, and we can have it all be managed by one local script here in the GUI actually. And so this is just a more clean way of doing it. I love local functions. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to test to see if it opens and closes. It's not going to open and close yet because we need to actually attach this function to the button. So how we're going to do that is say text button dot mouse click 1 connect, and then we're going to say open teams inside of that. And now when we play, it should open and close, and the text should change. So let's see. Let's close that. Boom. So it works. It opens and closes, and it changes text, and so now we don't have to have a separate button for it to open and close. So that's good. It's going to save us a little bit of memory. So the next thing we want to do is have the script loop through the mainframe and find all of the teams. And so how we're going to do that is a for ivy and pairs statement. And what that's going to do is it's going to loop through the entire mainframe and do exactly what we need it to. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is go ahead and set up our teams, because I haven't done that yet. There's a little trick to teams, and we can get to that a little later. But you just want to make sure that all the team colors are set to something different. Otherwise, it's not going to, the game is not going to pick up which team is which, and it's only going to display one of them. And so you just want to make sure as well that it's all set to auto-assignable is equal to false. But we're going to go ahead and start writing this code. So we're going to do for ivy in pairs, and then in parentheses we're going to do mainframe.going_frame get children do. And so what that's going to do is say, okay, hey, I'm finding the mainframe and I'm going to get all the descendants of that mainframe. And so then the script is going to check to see if all of what all the information is collected as a text button. And if it is, then we're going to set up a function for when a player presses a particular button. And so the way we're going to do that is v.mouseclick1, or mouse button one click, whatever it is. And what that's going to do is allow us to not have to code every single button in here separately, but it's going to allow us to loop through these buttons and find which button the player has pressed. And then through that information, we're going to set up how we find the group settings in that. And so if we say if v.findFirstChild group settings, then, and so this is going to check to see if the folder group setting is there. And then if it is, we're going to set up parameters to find the group ID and the group minimum rank. And so how we're going to do that is group ID, sorry, 1 second. Alright, so we're going to do group ID, and then we're going to say is equal to v get, no, not find first child. Is it? No, we're going to do v, and then we're going to do the, I guess they're like square parentheses. I don't know exactly what they are. But I don't know if there's a dot. So we're going to do v square parentheses group settings, and then we're going to do dot group ID dot value. And so this way the script is going to say, hey, like whatever button the player has pressed, it's going to find the group settings folder of that button, go through, find the group ID, and then we're going to set up the parameter for the minimum rank. And so we're going to find the folder again, find the minimum rank and the value. And so after we do that, we should be able to see if the player is in that particular group. And if he is, then we should be able to check his rank. And the way we do that is in group. If player is in group, or actually, I'm sorry, if player get rank in group, and then you want to say in the parentheses, you want to do group ID is greater than or equal to minimum rank. And so what this is going to do is check to see if the player is in that particular group, and then it's going to check the rank and see if that player's rank is above what it's supposed to. And if the player is in the group, then we are going to fire a server event called team change. So in the replicated storage, we want to make a remote event, and we want to rename it to team change. And so we're going to say game.replicatedStorage.teamChange, fire server, and then what we want to do is transmit the text of the button to the server. And how we do that is in the parentheses, we'll say v.text. And what this is going to do is it's going to find the button that the player pressed, and it's going to find the text of that button, and then send it to the server. And so after we do that, we're going to want to write an else statement to see. Yeah, so we're going to write an else statement to see like if the player is not in the group or he does not have the proper rank, then we're going to print in the output, okay, you don't have the right permissions. And so this will tell us if it's working or not. It's a way of debugging. And then we're also going to put a print statement here that says players change team. Because we don't have the manager set up yet, but we do want to see if this works before we do move on, just in case there's anything that we need to change. So we open it up, it works great, the scrolling works, and you can see that when we press a button and the output, it says players change team. So we know that the buttons are working. And so now the only thing that we have to do is set up all the spawns and set up a server script that will manage all of this. And so what we're going to do is insert some spawn locations, and what I'm going to do is just make sure that all of these are set to auto-assignable off. We only want one that is able to be auto-assignable, and that's more like your neutral team. And then we want to take all of these spawn locations, and we want to make sure that they are set to the same team color as the team. So if you go up, there's in the spawn location, there's actually two places where you can put it. But you also want the team name to be the same in the GUI. So that's very important. If it's not the same in the GUI, then it's not going to get transmitted to the server properly. And that's the text, that's not the name. So if you scroll down all the way in the spawn locations, you can see where it says team color. And this is where you want to change it to the colors of your specific teams. And so now that we have that, we should be able to get started on the server script. You should be able to add your values now if you want to as well, but we're going to wait until we get done with the server script, because we just want to see if it's functionable and actually changes your team. So what we're going to do is insert a server script into server script service, and we're going to call it team change. And so the first thing we're going to want to do is set up our parameters. As always, in this case we only have one parameter, and it is called event. And so what this is going to do is we're going to go to the replicated storage, and we're going to find our team change event that was fired in the client. Okay, and then what we're going to do is set up a function to receive that server event. So we're going to say event.onServerEvent connect function, and then here is where it's very important. So in the local script, we transmitted the text there, and so how we want to get it to the server is very easy. First thing we want to, so the first parameter we want is player, and so what that's going to do is transmit the player's name to us in the server, and that's very important because we're going to be using that later. And so the second thing that we want to do is put in the parentheses comma team name. And so what that's going to do is allow us to get the information that was transmitted from the client to the server. And so that'll allow us to get the text of the button that the player pressed, which is also the name of the team. And so that's how we're going to get the player on the proper team. All right. And so now that we have that, all we got to do is set the player's team to the proper team. And so how we do that is we're going to say player.team equal to game.teams, and then we're going to do the square parentheses again, and we're going to say team name. And so what that's going to do is put the player on the proper team name, and then we want to say player load character, and what that's going to do is respawn the character to the proper spawn. And so now that we have that, it's pretty simple. I think it's all set up, and yeah, so now we can test it. So the open works, and when we press the button, it respawns us. Now, the only problem I'm seeing right now is that it keeps us on the same spawn, or on the same spawn location. Let's see. Let's test it a few more times. Okay, so I think the problem is we didn't set the spawn locations to not be neutral. So let's check that real quick. Yeah, so you can see we can turn off neutral, and then now when we play the game, still works, and it sends us to the proper spawn locations. Boom. So there you have it, a fully functional, easy to configure team changer for your game. All you have to do is change the group values and the minimum rank values, and let me demonstrate that real quick. So it's pretty simple. All you do is go get your group values. I'll just go get a few real quick that I am in. This one. And then we'll set the minimum rank to 3. And so this is so, like, let's say you have a main group, and then in that main group you have a police group, right? And people who join that police group, they're probationary. Like, you don't want them to be on the team for whatever reason, training, whatever, whatever it is, right? You can set this minimum rank to 3. And so anybody who's, like, freshly joining your group, they're automatically assigned a rank value of 1. So if you go in your group's configure tab and you go to members, you can see what each rank is assigned, like what number they're assigned, and then that's what the script is checking. So it's checking to see if they're in that group, and then to see what rank they are in that group. And if they're above rank 3, then they will be able to join the team. And so now that we have all of that set up, let's get in here and test it real quick. So the teams still work, and boom. So you can see that even with the IDs plugged in, since I'm in all the groups, it allows me to switch teams. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this video of the simple team changer. I hope you guys end up using it. And if you want more Roblox scripting tutorials like this, subscribe, and I'll be putting out videos, probably 2 videos a week, 3 videos a week, something like that. So yeah. Hope you guys have a good day.